just going to give a run through. I'm just going to give a run through on how to work out which rule. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is write the rules on the top of your page. So the first rule is sine, so it's opposite over hypotenuse. Cos, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan, which is opposite on adjacent. And the way to remember it is just remembering sa, ka, toa. Okay, now when we're looking at this here, okay, we're going to look at, first of all, which one we are given. So if you go to where the right angle is and you draw an arrow, that number 7 there is the hypotenuse. The one that is right next to the 50 is the x. That one there is the adjacent. So we've got the hypotenuse and we have the adjacent. The opposite side, if you draw an arrow from the 50, that will be the opposite. We're not given the opposite, we're given the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So if you come down to the rules and you look, there's this one, here's the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So that means that the rule that we're looking for in this case would be cos. So this would be the cos rule. And when you set it up to actually find something, the order that it'll go in will matter. It'll be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. It'll be x over 7. Okay, so looking at the next one, trying to work out which rule. So if we go to the right angle and draw the arrow, that's the hypotenuse. Go to the angle and draw the arrow, that's the opposite. This one here is the adjacent, so you cross that out. So you have opposite and hypotenuse. Okay, so opposite and hypotenuse, so which rule would that be? That would be opposite and then hypotenuse. So that would be the sine rule. So this one is the sine rule because it's opposite on hypotenuse. That order is going to matter later on too. The opposite would be 9, the hypotenuse would be x. Okay, looking at the next one, what we're actually given here. So if we draw an arrow, that would be the opposite. If we draw an arrow opposite the right angle, that would be the hypotenuse. And the one that's right next to it is the adjacent. Now, we've got nothing on the hypotenuse there. The two things that we're actually given here is this side here and this side here. So we're given the adjacent and the opposite. So we're given the opposite and we are given the adjacent. So that means that this particular one would be tan. And the order that it would come in, opposite and adjacent, would be x over 7. Be good now to go and do some questions just on working out which rule. Okay, so finding a side, this is where x turns out to be on top. So first of all, identify which rule. So we're not given the hypotenuse, we're given the opposite, and we're given the one that is next to it, which is the adjacent. So write the rules down so that we can use them. Sock, S-O-H, car, C-A-H, and toa, T-O-A. Okay, so looking at this one here, that would be O on, so it's O on A, so that means it's tan. Now, I'd really like you to set this up really well. So you write tan of the angle, which is 40. So make sure you write tan of the angle. And then it's going to be opposite on adjacent. So the opposite is the x and the adjacent is the 9. Opposite on adjacent. Make sure that you do that order. Do the opposite first, then the adjacent. Opposite, adjacent. Okay, and if you look at that, x is actually on top. So what you need to do is, because that is division there, you need to times. So x will equal 9 times 10, 40. Just to give you a reason as to why you times, if you have 10, 40 equals x, if you multiply both sides by 9, they cancel out, you'll end up with x is 9 times 10, 40. So you're basically doing the opposite. Okay, so now let's just take a look at this one. That would be opposite, and this would be the hypotenuse. So OH, so that would be sine, because that is soc. Okay, so setting it up, we go sine of the angle, so sine 70 is the opposite. The opposite, if you look at that, is x, and we put that over the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse here is 16. You put it over 16. So you could go straight into, because this is division, and if you times both sides by 16, then the 16s will actually go out. Okay, but you can also think about it, because it's division, if x is on top, you times. So if it's on top, then the x will be like the number times the sine, the cos, or the tan of whatever the angle is. That's basically what will happen. How do you know if x is on the top or the bottom? It's the order that it comes in. So like just looking, check this one out. If that was 70, and that was x and 15, then when you're doing this, identify, so that would be adjacent and hypotenuse, because it's next to it. So you're going to go adjacent on hypotenuse. See that order? So that went x on 15. So x was on top. So see, that would be cos 70 is x on 15. So x is 15 times cos 70. Okay, so when x is on the bottom, so that would be, let's identify it first. Okay, so that's 9. That would be the adjacent because it's next to it. Opposite the right angle, that would be the hypotenuse, and we're not given the opposite. So if you look at this, this would be adjacent on hypotenuse. So remember, it is sa, ka, toa. So that means it's going to be cos. So cos of the 50 will be 9 over x. Now, because x is on the bottom, you end up dividing. You do 9 divided by cos 50. You can also think about it as you could just, you can use the division fraction button. Like you just swap those. You could cos 50, you could just put on the bottom. Because division and division both mean the same thing. Okay, so you put that into your calculator and you just do 9 divided by cos 9 divided by cos 50, and you end up with 14.0. I didn't give you any units. Okay, so just the why that happens, if you look at that, cos 50 is 9 on x. The reason why is if you times by x on both sides, the x's cancel. So x times cos 50 equals 9. And then if you just divide by cos 50 on both sides, then you end up with cos 50. X is 9 divided by cos 50, and then you get your answer.